What's up? We're here with another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. This might be part of a series. I'm thinking we're going to do some AI stuff. Probably going to set up some formations and maybe some tactics, but to get started, we're going to go with just getting an enemy set up and how to set up maybe a behavior tree or some simple behavior tree tasks. And we'll break that down into easily digestible parts. This is not going to be me like already having done this, then reverse engineering it and presenting it to you. We're going to do this and figure it out as we go. So it's going to be interesting to say the least. So to get started, I think our first step is in our this is a third person project. You can start a third person project in Unreal Engine. I'm in Engine version 5.2. And so if we hit play, you can see you can run around, jump and all that good stuff. This will be a good starting point. All right. So first thing, we want to create an enemy. So in our content third person blueprint section in our folder, we could start a new class, but we could also just copy this third person character and modify it. That might actually be easier, and I think that's kind of a good idea. So we're gonna highlight our third person character and we're gonna right click. I'm just gonna make this easier for you. Duplicate, which is Control D. Name this BP base enemy. We're doing a base enemy class. We'll probably do a lot of base classes in this so that we can extend them later. So if you want like a archer class or a melee enemy type, it'll be easy to have all the base variables and parameters, functions set up and then modify those. So let's go into our base enemy blueprint, and we got all this stuff. We are not going to be needing any of the movement or jumping input because we're not controlling this class. This is why I was kind of hesitant to just duplicate it. We're going to delete all this. We're going to keep begin play just because I like to use begin play. What else? In our BP base enemy self, click that. We're going to change our mesh. So if you look in the viewport, you can see this mesh. We're going to change this to, I'm going to go back to SK Mannequin, the old school one, since we're doing this for AI. We'll keep it simple and lightweight and easily distinguishable between our character and the enemy. So now that we got SK Mannequin, we want to change our animation blueprint, which if you go into the animation section, you can scroll down. This is where we're going to get stuck. We might be able to say, what happens if we type in simple? There's no that. What about Manny? Is there mannequin? Hopefully the Manny blueprint works with the old SK Mannequin. I think it does. Looks like he's moving in his idle, so I think we're good. So that should be good for there. Let's go into event graph. On begin play, let's just do a print string. Make sure that this is executing. We'll say hello. Let's do 5 seconds. And drag him, our base enemy. Oh, we got things we don't need. We don't need a camera, and we don't need the camera spring and camera boom arm or whatever. Camera boom and spring arm. Okay, so we'll delete the camera boom. Delete the follow camera. Leave the arrow component. Got our capsule component. Nice. I'm going to rotate him. You can rotate by pressing, I think it's E. Yeah, E. And then rotating him around. Hit play. Run in there, and there's our enemy. Cool. So that's step one. I'm going to pause this. I'm going to try to edit this in little steps so it's easier for me to assemble it. All right, so this next little sub part, we want our enemy to do something. So I'm thinking I don't know. What do we want him to do? Probably attack or patrol, or let's like make me. Let's make him move. Let's make our enemy move. That is simple. And before we move into behavior trees and tasks, we'll just make a function just to show you that we can make him move. So in our base enemy class, let me slow down. I'm a little sleepy. All right. Base enemy class event graph. In begin play, we have our little hello function. Let's create a custom event. I'm just making this up as I go, guys. Bear with me, and gals, and everything in between. We'll call this, I don't know, AI enemy move. And what do we want to do? We want to move somewhere, but where do we want to move, right? So to know where we want to move, it helps to know where we're at. So let's get our mesh's location. You could also get your capsule component. That's usually pretty good. Let's get our world location. And we're going to do get navigable or get random location in, I'm going to say navigable radius. There's also, if you saw below that, if you go get navigation in reachable point in radius. Oops, these are similar. I just prefer this one. And yeah, let's say 200, actually say 1,000. So that'll create a radius of 1,000 units around our enemy. Get a random point in that. And we're gonna say, what do we want to do? We want to move to. I think AI has a simple move to. Simple move to location. And we plug in the goal. We want to add an AI controller to this guy. That's important. So if you go back into BP base enemy self, we should try to find a controller class. Let's see. Type in controller. See how it says AI controller class, AI controller? Let's make a custom AI controller class because we're going to be needing to do some things with that. So that'll be next. So we'll go into our blueprint class, right click, go down to all classes and type in AI controller. You got different types of AI controllers. We're not going to worry about them. I could tell you about them right now. Like one is for large crowds, and I'm not really sure what grid path AI controller is, but you can imagine it has to do with grids and paths. Cool story. Okay, so we'll name this BP AI enemy controller. And as you can see, we like to add BP as a prefix to our blueprint classes. It just helps when you're searching through large projects and your like brain will not have to compute as much information when you're like, oh, is this a blueprint class or is this a struct, a material, etc. Anyway, just try to stay consistent in our best practices. So we got an BP enemy controller. Actually, almost want to name that enemy AI controller instead of AI enemy controller, but that's okay. And what do we want to do? We want to assign this back in our blueprint class. We want to say BP AI enemy controller. That's now our controller of this base enemy. And usually there's a setting, if you go into the controller, that we want to at least look at. And that setting is what happens when you are placed in the level. It's like an auto possess. Let's check. Let's see if we can find it. Yeah, so see if you type in placed inside of your base enemy class, you'll get auto possess AI, and we already placed it in the world, but if we spawned him in the world, he would not be possessed. So for now, we're going to do placed in world or spawned in case we want to spawn extra enemies and want to possess them automatically by the AI controller, which is generally what you want to do. Okay, so now we're here. I don't even know if we need to pass a controller in, but let's just do it anyway. So you type in get controller, and that'll go from yourself, which is what we want. I actually don't know if simple move to location even works, so we're gonna find out, because some things just don't work the way you think they would. Let's hit play. Oh yeah, sorry. It helps if we call the function or the event. So in our third person character, we should actually get the third person controller if we can find it. So if we type in third person controller, let me guess, we don't have one? So in our third person character, what controller are we using? Controller. I don't know. Normally, I like to type user inputs into the controller and not the character class. That's a good practice, so we should do that. Which means now we got to find where that controller class is, if it exists. The thing is, oh, duh. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. The player controller is going to be in your game mode settings. So if you go into project settings and go to maps and modes, selected game mode, and you come down, you'll see this player controller class. We're going to modify this to have our custom player controller. So I thought I was losing it for a second there, but no, it's just, I'm used to having a custom player controller class in my projects, so not seeing one is kind of weird. Anyway, we'll create one. So now we want to call it a player controller, which you could have just clicked this one, but we're going to make sure it's the one that is in there. BP player controller. We don't need to call it anything crazy. Then in our project settings, we're going to go in here and update our player controller class to be the BP player controller, the class that we just made. I feel like we should be able to save that, but I think it just automatically updates. That was a lot of words for not a lot of stuff, but bear with us as we progress through this project that we're freeballing as we go. Doing it live. Okay. Now what? We got our enemy controllers set up and linked. We have our simple move to location. We need to call this AI enemy move, and we want to do that from our player controller. So I'm going to do, just type in the number 1 and you'll get a keyboard event. And this keyboard event you can map with this button here to be whatever you want. You can make it a 2, but we're going to keep it a 1. And we're going to call the base enemy's AI enemy move. We're going to call this move 2 function or event. So let's call it AI enemy move 2. Move to random. Let's get rid of those underscores. Enemy AI enemy move to random. There we go. Sheesh. Okay, so you're like, all right, we're in our player controller. We want to call this enemy function or event, but we don't have a reference to it, so we can't call it. So we got to get a reference to it. And there's a lot of ways you can do this, but just for now, just to test this, because we're just showing a simple point, we're going to do get all actors of class. Don't do this normally. This is just for this one character, although you could do it for all. And we're going to say base enemy, and we're going to say for each actor in the array, which right now is 1, we're going to cast to BP base enemy, so that way we can access that base enemy's functions, and we're going to call AI move to random, or enemy move to random. And that every time we press 1, this will execute and get all of these and then move to, which is not the best thing. Actually, what we should do, I'm not even going to worry about it. We're going to end up deleting this anyway. There's way better practice in this, so let's just use this for testing. Hit play. Press 1. Uh-oh. That didn't do anything. Let's make sure that it's working. Add a breakpoint here. Apparently we don't have to cast there, so I'm just going to delete that. Save, play. Press 1. 1 works. We get all actors of class, 4 each. We go into there. So you can press these arrows if you want to step through and debug, and right click and add breakpoints when you want to debug your stuff, your code. It's very important. So we want to step into this AI enemy move to random to figure out why it's not working. So we're here. This event is being called. We got our mesh. We get a world location. And then we type this random location here. And we're saying simple move to location. So it's being called. I'm not sure though. This right here, how it says get random location navigable radius returning false. That's kind of a red flag. It might not actually be returning false. So we're going to do a little check there. So this is now AI debugging on top of how to set this up. So I think that'll be valuable to people because there's a lot of weird traps in AI and programming in general. So I'm going to put a breakpoint here. You can do that by just right clicking and going add breakpoint or disable breakpoint, enable. So now you hit play, press 1. That triggers that. I'm going to shrink this box down, press play again. And back, we're at this branch. This branch is returning false. So this is not being called. Why is this returning false? We don't know. It's probably because we're not getting a navigable location in the radius of 1,000. So whatever point we're returning is like somewhere where the pawn can't get. So let's do some tricks to make sure we get a useful point. And this is lazy, but also it works. Eventually we'll set up a environment query, which is part of the EQS system, and that'll be like the AI will be like smart and know where to go on the map in a grid. You create a grid and they'll be like, oh, these points are valid and these points are not valid. And they have a scoring system too. So it's like pretty intense. But for now, we're going to loop through this every time this gets false. And we're just going to try again. I'm going to print. Let's do a print string. And we'll say invalid location. Location, exclamation points. And I don't know, 4 seconds. I usually just do 5. Make it reddish orange. It's not the end of the world. Plug that back in. So normally when you're programming stuff, you want to avoid infinite loops like this because this might just infinitely drag on. So let's actually put a delay there. Hold on, just a small delay. Because that'll keep it from totally crashing your computer. Excuse me. Okay, press 1. I'm going to disable this because we know this works. Play, we're here. Returns false. Press play again. Still returning false. Still returning false. Still returning false. Something's wrong. Let's figure out what it is. So if you notice, we're returning a location, but navigable radius. The hint there is navigable. So we might need a nav mesh, which we're going to search in our outliner. Yeah. So it's weird. I think that the base map should come with a nav mesh built in, but it does not. So now we get to add one and see if we can find out how to add the new stuff in Unreal Engine 5. What do you see? It's like place actor maybe? Where is it? Window. Place actors is generally what I use, I think. We're looking for the nav mesh. Yo, you got any nav meshes? Nav Mesh bounds volume. That sounds right. Okay, so drag that into here. Beautiful. This looks kind of like it's in the center. So maybe we should just copy this location right here. So highlight this box, go down to location, right click, copy it, select your Nav Mesh bounds, right click into location, paste. Then we're gonna scale this bad boy. Say, what do you think, 20? That's too big. 15? Yeah, 15 works. And then we'll slide that up a little bit. You just want it to fit the box, if that makes sense. 15, we'll do 20. And then on height, I don't know, 10, just so we know we're inside. All right, and then you can tell, okay, that's our Nav Mesh bounds volume. That's a mouthful. Just make sure it fits inside the box. Okay. Now, out of curiosity, I just want to see if this like automatically fixes itself. Go back up here, type in nav. I remember thinking you could push spacebar, but I guess not. Close this place actors thing. We'll hit play. Press 1. This is now returning true. So that was what it was. So we need a valid nav mesh. Obviously, that's like what you need with your AI, but just saying, I think that Unreal Engine should come with a template project with it built in, but you know, that's just me. I guess if it did come with it built in, people wouldn't know to add it. So now you know. All right, cool. So we're here. I'm going to disable this so it will run. Hit play again. Oh, great. Lovely. We should do this in a separate pop-up window. Okay, so there's our enemy. Press 1. He runs around. Let's go follow him. Press 1 again. Press 1. All right, cool. So we know it pretty much works. So now we're going to do something fun. And then after that, I'm going to pause the video and figure out what the next step is. But for fun, copy this, paste it. Copy this, paste it. Copy this dude, paste him. Copy this dude, paste him. Yeah, so type in, I don't know, enemy. Select all those, copy them, paste them, move them over. Oh, not down. I said over. Move them into a valid place. That looks pretty good. So now we come in here. I'm going to run up here so we can get a better view. And when we press 1, oh yeah, King of the Castle. So you can just spam 1 and they'll just keep moving. So yeah, that is the basics of getting your AI to move. But now we want to actually go into AI features in Unreal Engine 5 and beyond and before. Is behavior trees and tasks. So that will be the next part of this video. I'm going to pause it and take another sip of my water. All right, so the next part of this video is to create a behavior tree, a blackboard, and a task for our AI. But before they do that, let's delete these guys because having that many enemies right now is a bit overwhelming. We only have one enemy, and that is time. All right, cool. So we're here, got this set up. Let's minimize that, do that. Excuse me. I'm drinking carbonated sparkling water, and it's making me burp. So let's create a new folder. Yes, good idea. AI, we'll call it AI. Ooh, actually, and above that, we're going to create a folder called enemy. And we are going to put the AI folder inside of enemy. We're going to take our base enemy and enemy controller, and we're going to slide those into enemy folder. Uh-oh. Don't do that. Don't do that. So We can do this, but anytime you get a message, it's like, hey, the config is going to need a find and replace for that. You usually don't want to mess with it. We're going to do it. We'll do it. We'll do it. Okay, but now we're going to have to fix that. So go here to this content folder on the left, right click it, and say fix up redirectors, and we should be fine. But generally speaking, anytime you get a warning like that, pay attention to it, because Unreal Engine's very particular about folder locations, and things can go wrong real fast in a big project. So where are we at? Looking for, not starter content, blueprints. Third person, blueprints, and we go into our enemy folder. I kind of want to look at that config folder now and see if it updated or not, just for funsies, but we're not going to. Okay, focus. We're going to do artificial intelligence, behavior tree. Technically, we should probably create a blackboard first, but that's no fun. So we go BT for behavior tree. We'll call this basic enemy. Cool. I gotta make sure I'm even recording. Yeah, sweet. Double click that. And this is the behavior tree. This is our arch nemesis and good ally, depending on if it's working or not. Behavior trees, we want to keep them simple in my experience with them, because it just gets too complicated and a lot of logic is better handled in blueprints themselves. Pro tip. So go to new blackboard. Click it. It'll say save asset as, and we'll do it this way. We're going to reparent this blackboard, but we'll just create it first. Let's call it BB for blackboard, and call it base enemy. Sure. So now you'll notice if you click this blackboard button up here, you can see that we got all these little space for activities, and there's a self actor key. And we'll be using blackboard keys to update values in our tree. I should go a brief review of what it's like. Do we do this now or do we wait? Let's do it now. Sequence, brief overview of the main features of behavior trees, sequence and selectors. These are the main two things you should be worried about right now. And a sequence, you can just highlight it or hover it and it'll tell you what it does. So a sequence, I'm going to read it to you because you can't read it yourself, obviously. But anyway, yeah, it executes left to right. And I believe that when it's like, if a child fails, then it fails. So say you got like 3 fingers, success, success, fail, then this sequence fails and it'll go up. So like say you have a sequence and you got a sequence here that has like a selector and another sequence, and we'll put another sequence over here. This is already too complicated, but just bear with me. Goes down the route, this sequence would hit this, which will go here and here. If one of these fails, this will not get executed, because once one of these children fail, then it goes back up to the top. So yeah, that is the basics of the sequence. It is important to know that you'll probably use sequences most of the time, but oftentimes you'll want to use a selector, which is a little sneakier. It's kind of like a negative Boolean logic. So the selector stops executing when one of its child succeeds. So that'll be useful later on. So if you got a sequence, say here, say this one here fails, this one succeeds, then this one will not be executed. So you'll see how those kind of interplay together. I'm just going to put a selector here for now. Actually, let's just leave it blank for now. Okay, that's your brief overview. There are other things. There's like here. There's decorators, which you can do a blackboard decorator, which will check a variable. See, this blackboard self actor is set, and on an on result change, you can abort yourself, lower priority, or both. So that's the thing we can do to check Boolean values or like locations. Like, do you have a target? I shouldn't even be talking about this. I'll show you. Like, it's better to just do it and then figure it out as we go. It'll make more sense. Yeah, cool. So I'm going to delete this little guy. We're going to keep a sequence, drag this out. We'll create a wait. This is a task. So there are built-in tasks. If you highlight here, there's like make noise, move to, play animation, yada yada. So we could recreate that move to task that we created in our enemy by saying we want to wait, get a location, which we have to do here, and then move to. So I'll do, but this, see how this says self actor? That's the only option we have in our blackboard. So right now we're going to create a location. Well, that's what we're going to do for our first test of the behavior tree and blackboard. We're going to basically recreate what we just made in our base enemy class, where we're finding a location and moving to it. And this was like validity code checking, you know. So to do that, we need to create a new task. So if you drag this down, can you create a new task here? I never do this here. I always do this out here, and I go right click, artificial intelligence. None of this is good. We'll go blueprint class. If you believe you type in task, it'll be like BT task blueprint base. That's our bread and butter for tasks. So I like to call this BT task because BT is taken by behavior tree. And we're going to call this find player location. So now this will be a little different from our enemy's random move to, because we're going to move towards the player, just because that's what I named it on accident. So if you type in event receive execute AI, cool. What are we doing? We want to create a variable. So this is another naming convention. You don't have to copy this, but I've been using it lately because it just helps my brain do brain things. So I call it blackboard key target location, or do we just want target? I think we're going to do target. And we're going to create another one actually. So we're going to take in a target and we're going to do blackboard key location. So these variable types, we want them to be blackboard key selectors. And if you hover over these little eyeballs, you can click them and you'll see them. So let's leave them unclicked, and I'll show you the issue with leaving them unclicked. If we create a new task called, what do we call it? Find player location. This is that task we just created. You'll notice that there's like no options. But if you go into find player location and click these eyeballs, now they're here. You see blackboard key target, self actor, and the other one is self actor. And that's all we have for our blackboard. So we're going to update those. Here, here's my comically large water. Here's a reminder to stay hydrated, especially if you're taking creatine. Okay, blackboard. New key. What do we want? Our target is going to be an object. We're going to call it target because the object will be our player pawn, which is an object at the highest level. It's like object, actor, character maybe, then pawn. I don't know. Pawn might be above character. Probably pawn is above character because it's possessible, I would imagine. Anyway, not important. What is important is that we want a vector, and we'll call this location. Well, let's call it target location. That is an important specifier. Specificity. Important to specify the difference. Anyway, so now we can update our key target to target and change our key location to target location. Cool. And this will be like, okay, wait 5 seconds, find our player location, move to, where do we want to move to? We want to move to target location. Notice how that target actor target is not there because it's not a location, it's a thing. We want a place. We're going to create acceptable radius of 50 for now, but he won't move there until we create this task. So what do we want to do? We want to get our target. So this sometimes is confusing because a lot of times you'll want to set this, but that's not how you set key selectors. You get them and then you set value, in this case as object. So we're not setting this right now, we're getting it, but I just want to show you this now because you'll run into this later and you'll be like, oh yeah, and then your brain will make that bridge and you'll have this weird connection moment and you'll know things better. So yeah, we do not set these like this, although you can set it like that. We get it like this, if that makes sense. But right now we are just getting, and we're getting as an object. Not, we're getting it. Get as object. Thank you. Okay. We're here, Blackboard key target, get Blackboard value as object. And what do we want to do? This is our pawn, our player pawn. So we're going to cast to it, which you probably don't have to cast to it. We probably could just get world location. Maybe not. Get location? No. Let's cast to third person character, because that's what our player pawn is. I had to look at it for a second there. Okay. Here we go. Third person character. What are we doing? We're getting your location of the mesh, sure. So we've been grabbing the location of the mesh. A lot of times it's easier to get the capsule component, but that might not always be accurate if you're like ragdolling. But anyway, just something to be aware of. I didn't say get socket location. Come on now. I want world location. Thank you. Okay. And then we're going to say our target location is get Blackboard key location, set object, not object, set as vector, because this is our location. This will grab this, which we set in our tree on the Blackboard, or in the tree, but you know, sets the Blackboard value, and then it'll spit this out into this key, which is Blackboard key location. And once we do that, we want to call finish execute, and we want to say that was successful, if it was successful. Otherwise, say like this cast failed. Let's do this just to be sure. We'll say that that fails. That's a fail example. Although ideally, if cast fails, you're gonna do some other stuff and make sure that it works. But for now, that's a good example. So we're here, back into the behavior tree of basic enemy. We got our key set target. Our target is our third person character, and we're getting our location, and then we're saying move to target location with an acceptable radius of 50 seconds. And then if that works, it'll reset and we'll wait 5 seconds. So let's hook it up to our enemy. We still have this AI enemy move to random. I kind of like that because it's kind of like a scatter if you have a bunch of them. So we're going to leave that. So there's two options here. We want to assign our behavior tree to our enemy, but we can also do it on possess. Come on, event. That's in the controller, isn't it? Okay, so we want to be in the controller. Or do we? In our enemy controller, if we go event possess, we can, is it run behavior tree? Yeah, run behavior tree. And we want to select that basic enemy behavior tree. That should work on possess. Out of curiosity, I wonder if we can run behavior tree in here. Okay, no. I bet we could figure it out though. Anyway, so in the AI controller, run behavior tree on possess. You can also do it on begin play, but sometimes your character might spawn in and not get possessed, and then it doesn't run the behavior tree, so we'll do it here. It's actually better to do it here. I sometimes do it here, and that's not very good. So now we know. Okay. Let's hit play and see if it works. Should be a 5-second wait, and then he should move towards our character. He's not moving. Oh no. Why not? It's waiting 5 seconds. Here, you can right click and add breakpoint. And then go in here. Let's just add a breakpoint here. Let's hit play. We're gonna have to wait 5 seconds to come back through. Okay, so what's happening? Oh, duh. So this was good. We did this. This is failing here. And our Blackboard key target is not returning an object. It's unknown. So that's why this cast fails. Man, it's like you guys are getting a 2-for-1 here. How to debug AI, because we're doing it live. So we want to set this object 100%. So in order to do that, we have to get it. All right, let's create another task. It'll be good practice. So back in here in our AI section, let's move this stuff to the AI. Basic enemy, AI controller, and our task to AI. I do not like seeing that warning. We're putting it there. Then right click content, fix up redirectors, just to be sure. Back into enemy, AI, blueprint class, BT task, base, BT task blueprint base, BT task underscore blueprint base. What am I doing? We want to name this, sorry, I was just writing what I was reading. We want to call this find player. This is what I get for doing this. Live and a little sleepy. Alright. Oogie. Where are we at? Find player. What was our other task? Find player location. If we're finding our player, that's like the same thing. Problem is, we're getting a keyboard target that isn't there. So we need to set this. How do we get this initially? How do we get this initially? Sure. I don't know what we should do here exactly to get the player, because we need a simple example, and I always end up doing this, which is like I always used to avoid doing this, but if we get all actors of class, actually let's even be a little fancier. Let's be a little fancier. All actors of class with tag. A little fancier. I'll call this player. And then in our third person character self, we type tags. Excuse me. We add a tag. We'll call it player. And then back in our task, we'll do our little loop. Make sure we know our class is third person character. And then we're going to create a variable and we want to set this as target. We'll say Blackboard key target, or yeah, target. And we're going to set this instead of getting it like we did in the other one. This is like a bit redundant because we could have done this in one task, but now it's probably good practice to keep tasks very simple and separate. Yeah. Modular. Okay, what's the word we're looking for? Blackboard key selector. And we don't want that to be visible, I don't believe. We want to get this, and we're going to set as object, spit this in here. So you'll know that this is a problem if you had multiple players, because it'll just overwrite the key with each player. So because we're doing this with one player, this will be okay, but otherwise you're going to want to find the nearest player, which is its own task. So we'll set that up later. But for now, for keeping the tutorial not over or under 2 hours or whatever, we'll just do this because we know there's only one player. If there's two, you want to sort by distance or something, or some value, and then set the target. So yeah, we'll start here. Make sure on completed, we say finish execute. Success. And make sure you put this on completed, not in the loop, because that could potentially cause problems. So this should set this target. Then back in our tree, when we say, what do we call it? Find player? We should call this find target. Let's call this task find target, because our player might not be the target, but for now it is. Anyway, so that'll set that key. Then we'll find their location, which takes in the key target that we set here, and then they should move to it. Let's check. Better work. Should be 5 seconds. Let's make sure this cast does not fail. Still failing. Why is it failing? It's because we're setting, hold on. Okay, so we need to get our Blackboard value right here, this target. We're not supposed to be creating this new key that I'm creating. All right, so I'm gonna have to re-record this part and try to line it up because my audio wasn't recording. I'm gonna go back into our enemy tree thing. And so in our find target, you'll notice that this Blackboard key target is now visible and you can set it. That is because you go in here, you select this Blackboard key target and you click the eye so it's open and visible and exposed to the Blackboard and behavior tree. Make sure that this is not self-factor, that that's set to target, and that'll update the find player location, and then it should work. So that's what the audio was covering, and I just said a bunch of other random stuff, probably hilarious. Unfortunately, you'll never know what I said, and the world is a sadder place because of that. So anyway, hope that helps. Okay, so now we want to do some things and stuff and stuff and things with the stuff and stuff to the things. Let's make our enemy shoot. I'm gonna re-record this because this, I don't know, it just feels weird.